What's going on, guys? We're your host.
We are Between Two Teeth.
I'm Study Stuff. This
I'm
is Bobby. And we got
very special guest.
Yeah, very special guest.
Dr. Roger Levin. What are we going to talk about today?
One of my favorite topics, balance, or maybe imbalance. And that's going to be kind of what we discussed.
And to give a little bit of a preface, you and I talked about this many, many years ago about balance. I didn't like the answer that I got from you because I didn't understand it, and it took me years to figure out what you meant. What does balance mean to you?
Well, I think the first problem is that we take on what society tells us, that we should all be balanced. But the truth is, if you're going to pursue goals in your life, any part of your life, you're going to live a lot of your life out of balance. If you think about a cross and the center of the cross is balance, the real goal is you're going to spend very little time in the center, but as you go to too much work, too much family, something happens to the family, financial, if you get far enough out, you want to know it's time to start moving back to that center.
And that's, I didn't like that answer when I heard it, because I'm like, no, I'm going to go right in the middle. That's what I want.
And I love that you talk about this, because I would imagine that your definition of success, though, has a little bit something different than someone who wants to have all the little pie slices in their wheel.
So how does success and balance, how do they interact?
Well, you have to start with what is success to an individual. It's like in executive coaching, one of the first questions I will ask someone is, what is it you want to achieve? At different times of your life, you're going to be more focused on work. You're going to be more focused on family. You might be 65 and need more money to retire. You'll be more focused on finance. So you define what success is, and then you're going to put more time and energy and effort in that direction. But if you go too far, you need to know it's time to come back. And real quickly, Bob, the reason you didn't like my original answer is it's not what society says. They say we should be balanced. Being balanced is a myth. It's not a reality. Long term.
That's what you said. That's what it was. You're like, it's a myth. And I was like, no, I don't want it to be a myth.
So as far as, so if you're a Zen person, or if you're a Buddhist monk might tell you that, and they might tell you that inner peace is more of what a wise man seeks. And would you think inner peace is kind of a product of finding that balance in your life, that ultimate balance?
Yeah, you know, I have some exposure to Eastern philosophy and Eastern religion, and I find those fascinating. But I would say, and this is my opinion, that inner peace comes from moving closer and closer to your goals. And you're not going to get there without a certain amount of work. It's all about energy. What you put your energy into will grow. And for a person who is more Zen, for example, calmness might be their big thing. For someone who's trying to open 7 dental practices, that's not calm. You can do it. You can do it under control, but you're moving forward toward your goal. When you're moving toward a goal and achieving, you feel like you have inner peace.
Has your definition of success changed through the years?
Oh, absolutely. And I hope it'll continue to change. First of all, as an individual, I'm a self-improvement junkie. I'm proud of it. Maybe I should be proud of it. I'm happy about it. I love learning from people. I love learning new. I love teaching. And a lot of times when I teach, I'm also learning, which is great.
Yes. And that's part of why we do this podcast. You teach what you want to learn. And that's, I think, why all 3 of us are on the same page on that.
Well, Peter Drucker, and for anybody who doesn't know, he was the greatest. He invented the science of business management, the greatest guru who ever lived. And Peter Drucker, when you talk to him, here's the greatest mind in business that ever lived, would say, I learn more from my clients than they learn from me. But usually there's one really big thing they wouldn't know if I didn't tell them. And I got to spend a day with him.
That's a win.
I love that.
When he was 90, I spent a day with him at his house. And he's the most humble, delightful person. But it's all about learning and continuing and moving forward.
So when we talk about learning, continuing, you're talking about this person being 90 and still giving great advice, kind of pushing back on them. What do you think, as far as longevity goes, can you be out of balance and still pursue this idea of longevity and really pushing that that border of what's possible, especially with humanity on that?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, and the answer starts with you're going to be out of balance. if being out of balance frustrates you, you need to look at balance very differently. You're going to spend 90% of your life out of balance.
Yes.
The question is, do you still, when you start to feel your energy draining, and I mean, not one night, but longer term, that's your first indicator. You need to start moving back to balance, regroup, and then see where you want to go from there.
And I think especially,
Okay, so I love that.
I love that, and that took me, that was difficult for me to deal with our wellness issue and mental health issues right now.
And that's different than how I thought you would answer that question. So I appreciate that answer because it really puts
Well, what did you expect?
So it makes that your comment on balance make more sense. And this is why I've looked forward to this interview on balance for so long, because the piece I was missing was, well, okay, I ran cross country in college and I had a million stress fractures. I actually had to stop running because I had too many stress fractures because I was out of balance. I believed, like you were saying, you do not make successes unless a lot of your energy is going into one thing. However, when you start to get to a point and you need to come back to balance. And so I love that you started to talk about getting back to balance. I think it's important before we start our next endeavor.
And being self-aware and surrounding yourself with the kind of people that can help you on your journey, and maybe reaching out and saying, you look tired, you don't seem like yourself, how are things going with you really?
And it actually plays into adaptability the more I think about it. Now, when you went to dental school, were you thinking any of this would happen? Becoming Roger Levin.
Well,
we were just in the
If I can say
speakers
that.
lounge area, and we told them that we have you on our podcast.
Everyone's
and
like,
oh my
wait,
gosh,
Roger Levin?
Wow,
Like,
that is
on
awesome.
Between Two Teeth?
In between two teeth.
There's a lot better
first of all,
podcasts.
let me keep my humility in check. I'm still becoming Roger Levin. I'm working on that. But I'll give you two very practical thoughts, because I like to prepare, and I knew what we were going to talk about a little bit. Number one is, don't set more than 3 goals a year. If you set 10 goals, you're chasing so much, you cannot possibly achieve it, you can't get it done. And I'm talking about big goals. If you've got more than 3 goals, you do not have any goals. And the second thing is an exercise that I recommend. And again, one thing you said, Bob, is so important. Highly successful people surround themselves with experts. Why do you want to learn things for yourself in a short life that other people know how to do? But one exercise you can do, it's almost December, is, I call it the 3s. Write down 3 things you will improve on next year. Then write down 3 things, and this is huge, you will stop doing next year. Part of getting to balance is to stop doing things.
Taking things out of the basket.
Right. And if you don't stop doing things, you eventually start focusing on many unimportant things, and you stop making progress.
That's great for especially new dentists to hear who want to get somewhere else. And it's super tough to stop doing something.
Well, on that note, thank you for listening. If you like what we're talking about, please hit subscribe.
Thanks, guys.